They stopped my education for his ego, but I refused to bow down. That single sentence has lived in my head for months, echoing every time I look at my old backpack still sitting in the corner of my room, untouched since the day my parents delivered their ridiculous ultimatum. I never imagined my own family, the people who were supposed to protect my future, would weaponize my education just to force me into apologizing to someone who should have been apologizing to me. The golden boy, that's what everyone called my brother, Ian. My parents practically worshipped him, and for years I convinced myself it was harmless favoritism. Every house has its favorite child, I told myself. Every family has that one kid who can do no wrong. For us, it was him. Straight A student, charming smile, polite when guests were around, and spoiled to the marrow when no one was watching. I didn't hate him, but I hated how my parents behaved around him, as if the sun rose from his forehead. Things exploded one night when he barged into my room, furious because I'd gotten a higher score than him on a practice exam. He had never tolerated me outshining him, even by an inch. He began yelling, accusing me of cheating, even tearing a few of my notes in a fit of insecurity-fueled rage. When I pushed him away from my desk to stop him, he fell back, made a dramatic cry, and within seconds my parents came running in. And of course, they believed him. He painted a picture of me attacking him for no reason, and they swallowed it whole. They didn't care about the torn pages on the floor or the way he'd stormed into my room uninvited. Their precious golden boy was hurt, so someone had to be punished. And it sure as hell wasn't going to be him. That night ended with shouting, accusations, and me storming out to sleep on the couch because my room felt like it was filled with smoke I couldn't breathe through. I expected things to cool down by morning. I expected a normal conversation where maybe, just maybe, the truth would come out. Instead, I woke to find my mother standing over me, arms crossed, face stiff, as if she'd rehearsed her lines all night. "You're not going to school today," she said. I blinked, confused. Why? My father walked in behind her, adding weight to her words. "Until you apologize to your brother for last night, you will not be allowed to return to school." I laughed because I thought it was a joke. I genuinely believed no parent would ever risk their child's academic future over something so petty. But their expressions didn't budge. They were serious. My mother even added, "Education is a privilege. And you don't deserve it if you can't respect your own family." I didn't say anything. I just stared at them, heart pounding, mind scrambling for logic that didn't exist. They wanted me to kneel to Ian, to validate his lies, to reinforce his belief that he was always the victim even when he was the one causing the damage. I refused. Of course, my refusal triggered chaos. My phone, laptop, and school bag were taken away. My father emailed the school saying I'd be taking a short break for personal reasons. My mother acted like she was dealing with an unruly child who needed punishment. Ian walked around the house with the smugness of a king who won a war he didn't even fight. Days passed, then weeks. The school sent reminders about assignments and attendance, but my parents brushed them aside as if my education were a toy they could store away and return whenever they pleased. But something unexpected happened. The more they tried to break my spirit, the more it hardened. I started reading textbooks at night when everyone slept. I quietly borrowed notes from a friend who lived 2 streets away. I asked teachers for materials via my friend's email account. I wasn't going to let their emotional blackmail ruin everything I'd worked for. My parents thought isolation would humble me. Instead, it lit a fire under me. One evening, I overheard them talking in the living room. My mother said, "She'll apologize soon. She needs school." My father replied, "Let her suffer a little. She'll learn her place." My place in this family, according to them, was beneath their golden sun, forever apologizing, forever smaller, forever grateful for crumbs of respect. That night something in me snapped, not with anger, but with clarity. I saw the truth of my family without the rose-colored lenses I'd worn my whole life. They didn't want a child, they wanted a puppet. They didn't want fairness, they wanted obedience. They didn't want me educated, they wanted me controlled. And once I understood that, something shifted inside me. I stopped waiting for them to come to their senses. I stopped hoping they would see my side. I stopped expecting fairness from people who had never been fair. I began preparing, not for an apology, but for an escape. Every night I studied quietly, catching up on everything I'd missed. I gathered documents they assumed I was too obedient to ever touch. I contacted people they didn't know I still talked to. I planned. I prepared. I strengthened myself in silence. Because if they wanted a broken daughter who bows down, they were going to be disappointed. And if they thought withholding school would stop me, they were about to learn exactly how wrong they were. My brother expected an apology. Instead, I gave him consequences he never saw coming. The funny thing is, he truly believed I would break. In his mind, I was the quiet one, the obedient one, the sister who always stepped aside so he could shine. He never imagined I had the spine to stand against him, especially not when our parents were so firmly on his side. But he underestimated how much a person can grow when their back is pushed against a wall. By the time a month had passed since they'd paused my schooling, I had gone through every stage of emotion, anger, confusion, hurt, disappointment, but what remained was resolve. Quiet, cold resolve. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't fight with them. I didn't break down like they expected. I simply stopped playing their game. Ian kept circling around me like a king waiting for someone to kneel. He would smirk each morning when I wasn't leaving for school. He'd drop sarcastic comments like, "Still not ready to say sorry?" Or, "You know, one word from you and everything goes back to normal." He thought I was stubborn. He thought I was being dramatic. He had no idea I was planning something far bigger than an apology. I started with gathering evidence. I still had the torn notes he ripped during his fit. I had the voice notes he'd accidentally recorded when he yelled at me once in the past. And then, one day, I got lucky. He stormed into my room again, assuming I was alone, and began complaining that I was the reason he felt pressured to maintain his perfect image. He ranted about how he had to make sure I wouldn't get ahead of him, that he didn't want me scoring higher, that it made him look less special. What he didn't know was that my friend, Zara, was on a call with me the entire time, listening to every word. When he finally left, Zara whispered, "Do you know what you can do with this?" I did. Over the next week, we collected everything. Every message he'd sent where he belittled me. Every photo of the damage he caused. Every voice note. Every rant. Every proof of sabotage. Zara compiled it neatly, labeling each file with dates and descriptions. I wasn't planning to embarrass him publicly or ruin his life. That wasn't my goal. My goal was simple: to free myself. Once everything was ready, I didn't rush. I waited for the right moment, an evening when both my parents were home, sitting in the living room watching TV. Ian was upstairs in his room, probably playing the role of the stressed genius who just wants peace. I walked downstairs and stood in front of the TV. My mother looked annoyed. "What now? Are you finally ready to do the right thing?" I stared at her calmly. "Yes, I'm ready." My father sat up straight, relieved. "Good. Apologize to your brother so this nonsense can end." I took a deep breath. "Actually, I'm not apologizing." Their faces darkened immediately, but before they could erupt, I spoke again. "I'm giving you the truth instead." I handed them a USB drive. My father frowned, confused. "What is this?" "Proof," I said simply. "Everything that actually happened. Everything you refused to listen to." My mother scoffed, but something in my voice must have shaken them, because they plugged it into the TV. The first clip was a voice recording of Ian yelling at me, calling me names, accusing me of cheating because he couldn't handle losing. The second was a video Zara had recorded during a group study session where he mocked my efforts behind my back. Then came screenshots of messages where he admitted to tearing my notes, out of anger. And finally, the recording from the day he barged into my room and confessed he couldn't stand me outperforming him. By the time the final clip ended, the living room was silent. My parents' faces were drained of color. Their golden boy wasn't so golden on screen. My mother whispered, this can't be real." "It's very real," I replied. "And you punished me for his lies." Just then, Ian appeared on the stairs, sensing something was wrong. When he saw the TV, his face fell. "What are you doing?" he snapped. I turned to him, "Showing them who you actually are." He panicked, rushing toward the TV to turn it off, but my father stood up, blocking him. "Sit down," he said, his voice shaking with a rage I had never heard directed at my brother before. For once, Ian wasn't the king. He wasn't the favored one. He was just exposed. He tried lying, deflecting, blaming me, blaming stress, blaming anything he could think of. But the evidence was undeniable. My parents looked at him as if they were meeting a stranger for the first time. I didn't feel joy watching his downfall. I didn't feel satisfaction. What I felt was release, like I'd been carrying a weight for years, and finally, it slid off my shoulders. After a long, tense silence, my father finally spoke. "You may return to school starting tomorrow." I nodded. I already arranged everything with my teachers. I just needed you to know the truth. My mother looked down, shame settling into her expression. Ian didn't say a word. He walked upstairs quietly, the echo of his footsteps sounding smaller than they ever had. I didn't apologize. I never would. And in the end, the person who thought he held all the power learned that a lifetime of entitlement doesn't protect you when the truth finally catches up. They paused my schooling to protect his ego. But when the truth came out, it was his future that cracked, not mine. When everything finally cracked open and the truth about my brother came spilling out, I thought that would be the end of it. I assumed my parents would finally see me clearly, finally treat me with the fairness they had denied me for years. For a few days, the house was unusually quiet. No accusations, no demands, no judgments thrown at me like stones. My parents walked around as if they were trying to swallow something bitter they couldn't quite digest. But silence doesn't mean peace. Sometimes silence is just the space where the next storm gathers strength. On the first morning I returned to school, I felt an unfamiliar lightness. Walking through the school gate didn't feel like a privilege someone could snatch away anymore, it felt like something I had reclaimed with my own hands. My classmates asked where I'd been. I gave vague answers. I didn't owe anyone details. I focused on my classes, catching up, breathing normally for the first time in weeks. But when I came home that afternoon, I sensed energy shifting. My father was in the living room, pacing with the tension of someone who had been waiting for a confrontation. My mother sat stiffly on the couch, hands clasped so tightly her knuckles were pale. Ian wasn't in sight, which meant he was probably hiding upstairs, avoiding the fallout he had created. My father looked at me as I set down my bag. "We need to talk," he said. I nodded, but inside, a warning flickered. I had heard that tone before, firm, authoritative, preparing to dictate rather than discuss. "We watched the recordings again," he started. "Your brother, what he did was wrong. Very wrong." My mother nodded weakly. "But," my father continued, "he is your brother." That word again, brother, as if it carried more weight than truth. As if it erased the damage. I stayed silent, waiting. "He is very stressed," my father added. "He said he feels attacked. He feels betrayed." I almost laughed. Betrayed. He was the one who lied, sabotaged, manipulated, and expected applause for it. Yet somehow he had twisted himself into the victim. My mother took a deep breath. "You exposed him. You humiliated him in front of us. You should have come to us first." I stared at her. "I did. Many times. You never listened." She avoided my eyes. My father sighed heavily. "We just want to restore peace in this house. And for that, both of you need to take steps." There it was. The balance they always tried to force, even if it meant placing the weight of their son's mistakes on my shoulders. "What steps?" I asked. "We want you to delete those recordings," he said. "All of them. And we want you to talk to your brother. Clear the air. Make this family whole again." I felt something crack quietly inside me. They still didn't understand. They still believed peace meant silence. They wanted harmony built on my sacrifice and his impunity. "I won't delete anything," I said calmly. "And I won't fix what I didn't break." My mother's voice sharpened. "You're being stubborn again. We're telling you this for your own good." "For my good," I repeated. Pausing my schooling was for my good. Ignoring me for years was for my good. Questioning me every time he lied, was that for my good too? Her jaw tightened, but she didn't answer. My father's patience snapped. "Enough. You will not hold this family hostage with your evidence. We are trying to move forward." "Why can't you move forward?" Those words stung. They didn't want truth. They wanted comfort. They wanted the golden boy restored to his pedestal. They wanted their world to go back to the way it was. "I am moving forward," I said quietly. "But not into the same place I came from." My father clenched his teeth. My mother looked like she might cry, not out of remorse, but because her illusion of a perfect family was slipping. "You're going to destroy this household," she whispered. "No," I replied. "I'm just refusing to destroy myself for it anymore." Before either of them could respond, Ian appeared at the top of the stairs. His eyes were swollen, either from crying or pretending to. He looked at me like I had stolen something precious from him. "You ruined everything," he said softly. "Truth ruins nothing," I replied. "Lies do." He looked like he wanted to argue, but he didn't. He just disappeared back into his room, closing the door with a quiet finality. That night, I lay awake thinking about everything, the years of being overshadowed, the months of being punished, the days of planning my retaliation, and now this moment when the truth had finally surfaced, and yet nothing truly changed. And that's when I understood something painful but liberating. Some families don't want the truth. They want a version of you that fits their comfort. And if you refuse to play the role they assign, they will call it rebellion, disrespect, betrayal. It wasn't my job to heal their disappointment. Over the following days, I stopped trying to fix anything at home. I focused on school. I studied late. I took extra classes. I made plans for my future that didn't depend on anyone's approval. My parents spoke to me less. Not out of anger, out of discomfort. They didn't know how to navigate a daughter they couldn't control. And he avoided me entirely. No smirks, no comments, no insults. For the first time in my life, he knew I wasn't afraid of him. One evening, as I packed my textbooks for the next day, my mother stood at my doorway with a hesitant expression. "You've changed," she said. I replied. She didn't disagree. Maybe someday they'll understand. Maybe someday they won't. But either way, I'm done shrinking to make others comfortable. I'm done apologizing for truths they refuse to see. I'm done carrying guilt that never belonged to me. My parents paused my schooling to make me bow to their golden boy. Instead, I learned to stand taller than ever. And that lesson, no one can take that away.